Hello and welcome to the Fix-It video. So as you can see right now, the robot is basically out of size, and that doesn't even account for when this moves upwards. So we've come up with a solution for this problem to the point where it will be competition legal. As you can see, when it rises up to this point, that's the point where the ring can go in. It can't go any farther than this. This is at its max points, max height right about here. So we're gonna bring it in size. So the two things we're gonna do is we're going to move the flywheel in this way 2 holes, and we're gonna move the intake in this way 2 holes. So we're gonna bring it in size. First thing we're going to do is we're going to take off this top C channel here and the license plate, if you chose to put the license plate here. If it's in somewhere else, then you can ignore this step. After that, we are going to move the entire indexer down 1 by 1 hole. So for that, you're going to need a T8, and you're going to take the collar off from this side over here. So whatever position this needs to be in, to get the collar to come off. Should be able to come out pretty nicely. And when you pull this out, you're going to pull it out with the axle, because you're not going to be able to pull the entire thing out. It'll get stuck in the upper C channel. So we're going to leave this the way it is. So we're going to remove this screw that is right here, because we're not going to need it anymore. After that, we're going to take off these 2 green screws, but we're going to hold the motor in so that we don't lose all of this stuff here. Once this top screw is fully removed, you're going to keep the bottom screw in. Remember, we're moving this entire thing down by 1 hole. Then we're going to take the 2 bearings that we have here, we're going to put them back in, remember, with the slits upwards, and this is going to go into the middle hole. So as you can see, this is 1 hole lower. And we're going to put the other green screw in the bottom hole right below it, hold that, and then put the motor underneath. Once you do this, we're going to take this back. We're going to place this in the position that it's supposed to be in. Put these in here. Put 2 washers in here with the 1, the same way that we did this before. And then we'll put the collar. Right, once that falls in there, you can take the T8, tighten the collar. Now, as you can see, this should be about ready. The one last thing we're going to do is we're going to retake the screw with the spacers on it. That was actually independent as out before for the back. And we're going to put that in the front now, right here. And that should work just as well as it was before. Now we're going to get into the more difficult things. So first thing we're going to do is we're going to remove this chain from the top here. And we're going to take off the intake temporarily. Now the intake is only connected by 3 screws, so this shouldn't be that difficult. So we're going to start taking this one off up here. Then we're going to take off the one down below. We're also going to remove the rubber band attached here, doesn't matter where. There's also another screw attached to the base over here, and that's the last and 3rd screw that I'm taking out. After this, the intake should be able to come off pretty easily, just like that. Now, for this next part, we're going to move the entire flywheel 2 holes forward. So for the back, I am just flipping the C channel around and moving these 1 hole to the 1 hole this way, so that it has the stability needed. And then for the front, I'm going to be pushing these off with 1-inch standoffs, and we're going to be moving this to a new hole over here. The first thing we're going to do is take off the flywheel. This is 5 screws, so we're going to start up at the top here. And we're going to move to the bottom. And do the other side as well. And then we're going to do these two front parts up here. Once you take this off, which should be pretty easy with the flywheel to come off, then you'll put it to the side. We're going to change some of these things. We're also going to change a few things structurally to make it more strong. So we're gonna flip this over, other side. So if you can see, this channel is pretty bent here. We're gonna fix that by adding structural supports. So we're gonna get a new C-channel. This one's straighter, and we're going to apply this as if it's going on the inside here. So it was on the outside like this, and now we're going to put it on the inside, okay? So in order to line this up, we want to make sure that these holes are the same as these ones up front here. Alright, now that we've done this, we're going to get the same spacing, a half-inch spacer and a 0.375-inch spacer. We're going to fit them inside here, like so, and then we're going to get a 1.25-inch screw as well. This should go something like this. Alright, now this is done. We're going to make a few fixes on this side over here before we come back here. So first, as you can see, this bar over here is really bent this way and over here. So we're going to fix that. First thing we're going to do is we're going to take off this screw right here. It's connected to this. Alright, so we're going to take the 33 hole C-channel. We're going to thread a bunch of half-inch screws, as you can see here. Get it to the other side as well. And we're going to put 1 and 2 washers. We're going to start with these over here. Remember, it's 2 holes back. Remember to keep it loose. Just so you guys know, turning this sideways adds 4 points of contact instead of 2, which helps the structural stability. After you keep them all loose, you can tighten them again. So one more thing before we finish this up, we're going to take a 5/8" screw and a 1 and 2 washers to reattach the horizontal funnel. Alright, next we're going to take 2 3-inch standoffs, 2 3/4" screws, 2 1/4" screws, and 2 4s or half-inch spacers to secure this channel to the middle channel. This is very similar to these 2 standoffs here. It's basically the same thing, just between these 2 here. So these are adding structural supports to the front and the back channel. So now this back channel cannot move when pushed or pulled. It has the support of these 2 back channels back here. Alright, then we're going to take 2 1.25" screws, 2 half-inch spacers, and 2 0.375" spacers so that we can finish adding these. So we're going to take 1 of each of the spacers. We're going to fit them in like so. We're going to take the 1.25" screw. Now all these fixes can be made when the flywheel and the intake are on as well, but they're easier when it's off. Now we're going to add 2 7-hole 1-bys to the back here, like so. Now we're going to take a half-inch spacer and a 1/4" spacer and a 1-inch screw for the final step of this. We're going to multiply that by 4, so we have 4 of each of these. And then we're going to have 2 1.25" screws and 2 more half-inch spacers and two 0.375 inch spacers. Now, if you want these to be 7s, then they'll only attach by 1. If you want them to be 8s, they'll attach by 2. For now, I'm attaching these with just 7s, and they're going to be acting as 1s. I'm going to take a 0.375 inch spacer, half-inch spacer, and stick that in the middle. And stick this underneath, like so. Then I'm going to take a Kev's nuts. Tighten this on like this. Then you're going to take a half-inch spacer and a 0.25 inch spacer, and you're going to take the 1 inch screw and attach it from the bottom. This is on the other side. And take Kev's nuts. This. And then I'm going to copy this on the other side, or mirror it, you can say. So we've attached everything. The only thing left we have to change is moving these back this way. So we're going to remove these screws here that are connecting these two C channels. We're gonna do it one at a time. So the first C channel, doesn't matter which side you do, but you take it off. And you take the two 1/4 inch screws that you had before. And we're gonna push them outwards and use half-inch standoffs. Screw them in like so. Alright, once we do this, and we're going to have 2 holes in between each of these, and we're going to attach this with 2 1/4 inch screws here. Alright, remember to keep this loose because we don't want there to be too much or too little spacing. Now we're going to do the same exact thing we did on this one to this one. As you can see, we basically moved everything 2 holes forward this way. So this used to be here, so 1, 2 holes this way, and these used to be on the inside here, so 1, 2 holes this way. Alright, now we're going to take the flywheel and reattach the flywheel on. So before we put it on, we're going to attach a half-inch spacer with a 0.35 inch spacer with a 1.25 inch screw. We're going to do the same thing on the other side, except it's going to be a 1.5 inch screw. We're going to keep it so that the screws themselves have enough room for the C channel to fit in between. Then we're going to place this on here. Once it's in the correct position, I'm going to push like so, and that should rest nicely. Then I'm going to tighten these screws down. Alright, then we're going to do the front side over here. So we're going to do the same thing that we did on the previous side with a half-inch spacer and a 0.35 inch spacer. Just going to attach the second hole. And we're just going to be using Kev's nuts for this. One last thing, we're going to tighten all the bottom screws so that they're extra secure. So back, tighten these. As you can see now, it's not a big deal because we're tightening them because they're basically constrained. The last thing we're going to do is we're going to add the intake back on. Before we add the entire intake back on, we're going to need to take this bar off. just gonna slide this in here. And remember, the holes that you placed it on before should be moved one hole in this way. Okay, now when you're attaching the intake, you're gonna attach it onto this hole, which is the 11th hole up on this side over here. And you're gonna attach this on the middle hole down here, on the second middle hole here, with on the 4th hole going up. Finally, before you put the intake back on, we're going to be attaching this on the 6th hole back from this 14 with a 1-inch standoff. I highly recommend doing this when it is off the robot. And then you're going to attach a screw to the other side. Alright, I'm going to use an Allen wrench for this. Now you're going to want to tighten this down. Like so. Alright, and that is the fix-it. Now just so that you can see, this is in size. And when this lifts up, there's plenty of leeway, about ½ an inch. I would like to thank all the people who brought this to our attention. Hopefully we made some other improvements, as you can see, adding some structural stabilities to some of the problems we saw when putting this robot through some tests. Thank you again.